Welcome,
Hello.
folks. Oh, yep, you go. You got it.
I was too eager to greet everyone. Hello to the viewers out there. Thank you for joining us today for another edition of Sustainable in the City Thinking Upstream. My name is Patrick King. I'm a Sustainability Education Manager with Urban Green Lab. And I am joined today by, as I always am, by my co-hostess with the mostest, Jenn Harrman from Metro Nashville Public Works.
All right. I am super excited about our talk today about litter. It's like one of those things every time I drive to work and I drive home from work and I see the litter, I see it everywhere. So I'm excited to talk about it today. There was one time here at Public Works, which we do a lot to deal with litter here. And as JD will talk about, but there was somebody that came into the building. I was leaving the building to head out to a meeting back when meetings were in person were a thing. And I saw somebody toss an apple core right in front of the building, like pretty much at the doorstep of the Public Works admin building, which I promptly pulled over and picked up and threw in the compost bin. It's like, you're littering. Because fruit, any kind of vegetables, banana peels, that's still litter. Threw it right in front of the building. Come on now. Let's get it together.
Maybe that was a statement. Somebody was just very disgruntled with Public Works, perhaps.
They seemed friendly enough. So I don't know. I didn't confront the individual. I just picked up the litter.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's something that I guess most folks, it's just ubiquitous because it's sadly everywhere, right? But and we'll get more into it, but like the conversation we're having today is, it's not just, a piece of paper on the roadway. The life of litter, is long lasting, especially, plastics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good one today. So folks, get your questions out, get them ready. We'll get started here in just a couple of minutes, maybe one more minute.
Yeah, at 12:03, I think 12:04 is a good time to get going. Hope everybody's doing good today. It's intermittently sunny. The sun is out over here in Inglewood, so hopefully you're able to get some sun today because apparently we're supposed to have weather tomorrow. As usual, at this time of year in Nashville, it's days like these, and then it's tornado warnings the next day. So enjoy it while you can. And I'm still curious if we should have music, Jenn. We got mixed answers last time, but I'm still curious. And forgot to mention, throughout the entire presentation, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put those in the chat, and then we'll do a Q&A afterwards. But you can also just share your thoughts and resources between our panelists and attendees in the chat. Just, get to know each other. And again, will this be recorded? Yes, Bryn, this will be recorded and added to Urban Green Lab's YouTube channel. And everyone who is attending this event will get a follow-up email that has the recording, a link to the recording, as well as any resources mentioned throughout the presentation. So that's a great question.
And Patrick, I'm going to actually share our next screen here if you want to talk about our next quarter.
So yes, this is the last session in our first quarter of Sustainable City, and I'm so happy to share this with you all because this is the first time the public has seen our schedule for the second quarter. That would be April, May, and June. Coming up for April, that's Earth Month, we have a changing climate in Middle Tennessee. We know that our climate is changing right now, but depending on where you are in the world, that might look different. So we're really just going to unpack what that can and will look like for residents of Middle Tennessee. And then later in April, we're going to dissect Nashville's climate action plan. We're going to have some guests from the Mayor's Sustainability Advisory Committee. Then in May, we're going to do things, we're going to discuss things that are all related about how and where we live. So we're going to do one on living buildings, home energy and energy efficiency. And then in June, we're going to be taking a look at construction and creative reuse. So also in that follow-up email, I will have links So you can register for all of these events at once, or you can just register for the ones that you are most passionate about, but hopefully you'll register for all of them. And as always, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to email me. My email address is patrick@urbangreenlab.org. Or you can email Jenn, whose email, I'll let her say her email.
It's Jenn, JENN .Harrman@nashville.gov. So we'll share those with you as well in that follow-up email. All right. Are we ready to get started, Patrick?
I think so. And again, if you have any questions throughout the entire presentation, please just go ahead and put those in the chat. And we'll do our Q&A afterwards. And Jenn, I think that is all it. I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I am super excited to introduce our guests today to talk to us all about litter and its impact on our environment. So we have 3 special guests today. Our first is JD Lane. He is a native Nashvillian who received his Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Business from the University of Tennessee at Martin. And shortly after completing that bachelor's degree, he joined Metro Public Works, where he has several roles with this department, including managing the maintenance of public works facilities, overseeing all aspects of Metro Public Works litter prevention programs, including the Adopt a Street, court-ordered community service, volunteer cleanups, the mayor's spring clean, and litter prevention education. So he does a lot with litter here at Public Works. He also works directly with Keep America Beautiful and Keep Tennessee Beautiful on all Metro Beautification and Environment Commission projects. So he's our Beautification Commission coordinator here with Metro Public Works. And then we also have Gray Perry here from Cumberland River Compact. He is their Clean Streams Initiative manager, and he also was born in Nashville. He's lived in Tennessee his whole life, and he has graduated from the University of Tennessee with a bachelor's degree in Earth and Environmental Studies, and started with the Cumberland River Compact in 2017 as an AmeriCorps member. I remember working with him a little bit on the Adopt a Stream program when I was over at Metro Water Services. And after completing his term as an AmeriCorps member, he stayed on with the Cumberland River Compact as a volunteer, to help with the volunteer litter cleanup programming. He also works on watershed planning and grant writing as well. And then our third guest, but not last, Veronica Logue. She works with Metro Water Services as an environmental compliance officer. And she's originally from Kentucky, but grew up in Middle Tennessee. So we've got lots of Tennessee folks here today. She has a BS in biology from Middle Tennessee State University and a master's in biology from Austin State University. Veronica joined the Watershed Group at Metro Water in July of 2013, and her main role was as a biological coordinator. So this involves assessing the health of aquatic life in streams throughout Davidson County. Very cool. Her role also assists with a variety of other types of environmental sampling, stream assessments, and public education. So we have a really fabulous panel of experts here today to talk about litter in our environment. And so I am going to get into it and first have, I know I've just done a quick introduction for each of these folks, but before we get started, I would like each of you, if you could tell us a little bit more about maybe what you do on the day-to-day and the goals of your organization. So we are going to throw this to Veronica. Is there anything else you'd like to add about what you do and who you are in Metro Water Services?
Hi, Jen. Thanks again for having me. Yeah, like you said, I work for Metro Water, which, is a municipality, and a lot of people think of it as just the water department. Like, that's where I pay my water bill and they come out and read my meter. But I actually work in the watershed section, which is part of the stormwater MPDES department. So for those that aren't really as familiar with that, basically because Metro is its own municipal separate stormwater sewer system, we are required to have a NPDES permit, which is the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Permit, that basically ensures that a lot of the regulations that were put into place through the Clean Water Act are being followed. So we have kind of 4 distinct groups falling under that permit. We have the regulation and urban forestry section that are kind of grouped together. Then we have all the construction site inspectors and grading permit section. And then we have our permit section that's just kind of industrial site inspections, illicit discharge investigations, and then the watershed group, which, like you said in my introduction, we are responsible for monitoring all the streams that are listed as impaired, which involves, stream assessments, environmental sampling, a lot of fun. We get to go and play out in the streams, and we encounter, a lot of litter in the process. So just to kind of give an overview of our daily activities, we do stream walks, we sample for pathogens, we look for habitat alteration, erosion, sedimentation in the streams, check all of the MS4 infrastructure, look for sewage leaks, and overall, as a department within Metro Water, I guess our main goal is to just kind of reduce source point and non-source point pollution that could be contributed through the MS4, and to kind of, overall improve water quality throughout Metro. So
that is a lot. Definitely a lot, but very, very important work. All right, let's throw it over to JD. If you could tell us a little bit more about what you do and what you do for Public Works.
Absolutely, Jen. I'm glad to be here, glad to be on this and speak about this. Again, I work with Metro Beautification, which is a division of Metro Public Works. We kind of help with litter cleanups. We help organize volunteer cleanups. We have a Adopt a Street program, which I'm over. I can go over that later. But we also have a court-ordered community service program that we work with the courts of Davidson County, and they send us community service workers, and we go out, pick up trash and illegal dumping on the side of the roads. And that's probably one of the more effective programs we got, just because it's, I'm not going to say it's totally free labor, but it's able to get people to kind of pay back to society and get out there and clean up the streets and keep city workers from doing it, let them be able to do other things to help the city grow. But like Metro Beautification, a lot of what we do is we work with people. People come to us and they'll be like, I want to clean up this street in my neighborhood. I want to clean up my neighborhood, like a little subdivision, and we'll help them. We'll help them do that. We'll help them organize volunteers. We'll give them the supplies they need to do the cleanup safely. We work a lot with them, especially on that. Same way with the Adopt a Street program. Somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I want to adopt this section of say Apache Trail in Antioch, and I'll work with them, and kind of like the neighborhood cleanup. We'll give them supplies to do the cleanup. A bonus with the Adopt a Street program is you get to put a nice sign at the end of the street you're adopting. It kind of show your business, your family, or anything like that you want to promote. But like I said, in a nutshell, beautification, we just kind of help try to make the city more cleaner and greener. I guess if I could keep it short as far as that goes. So.
Absolutely. I know y'all have provide a lot of resources and do a lot just for litter cleanup. I've seen them all out there. So a lot of really great work. All right. And Gray, if you could tell us a little bit about the Cumberland River Compact.
Sure thing. Yeah. Thank you all so much for having me on today and talking about litter. It's a huge issue that I definitely see a whole bunch. So yeah, I am a program manager at the Cumberland River Compact. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that was established in 1997. And our mission is to enhance the health and the enjoyment of the Cumberland River and its tributaries through action, education, and collaboration. So we're not just working in Nashville, but throughout all of Middle Tennessee, up in Clarksville, and places in Kentucky too, throughout the entire watershed. And we do all kinds of stuff, do a lot of education. So we do K through 12 education, bringing in programs like Creek Critters to teach kids about macroinvertebrates and bugs that we have living in our creeks. Do a lot of adult education through things like river talks, trying to teach people about climate change or water resource issues that we're encountering. We have our volunteer program, so we also have a lot of cleanups that we do that we're also not just picking up litter, we're doing a lot of education while we're doing it. A lot of rain garden builds to improve bioretention and stuff like that. We do physical restorations. So we have a lot of big projects where we go in and we find streams that need some help, and we will get funding to repair those streams and kind of restore them to a more natural state. And we have a bunch of other stuff doing. We work with the mayor's office and Root Nashville to plant trees throughout the entire city as well. So always encourage y'all, if you're ever curious about all the crazy stuff that's going on, just check out our Facebook page or our website and see what's going on. But I specifically work a lot with the volunteer program and cleanups. And I work with my coworker, Ross Miller, to run the Adopt a Stream program, where we get groups to go out and do cleanups throughout the year in our local streams.
Awesome. I know I've participated in a number of Cumberland River Compact programs, and y'all do fabulous, fabulous programs. If those of you have not checked out River Talks and some of the other stuff he talked about, I still have it on my list to do one of the kayak cleanups I know you all have done in the past. So a lot of really great stuff as well. Awesome. Okay, so we are going to get into it. So as you all know, litter is an absolute eyesore, especially we're in the winter months right now. So it's much more apparent that litter is out there without the leaves and the plants to hide how much litter is on our streets and in our streams. And so litter makes our neighborhoods and our communities look trashy. But looks are only one small part of why litter is bad, of course. So today I want to get into all of the many ways litter impacts our neighborhoods and our community. So the first off, let's start with people, all of us. Can each of you talk a little bit about how litter can impact our health, our wallet, our safety, or other ways litter impacts us as people? So I'm going to start with you, JD.
All right, I guess I'll start off first with how it impacts the wallet. I know TDOT, which I know statewide, but I think they said last year they spent $15 million on litter cleanup. And of course that was statewide, but that still kind of gives you an idea, how much it's costing the state. So it can really, with Metro, as far as us, we're having to send crews out to pick up this litter and debris. We're also having to, provide the supplies to pick up the litter grabbers, the safety vests. And at Metro Beautification, we are able to get some of that stuff through grant funded, but a lot of this stuff, the city's having to come out of pocket for to pay for these supplies, pick up, which, it seems like this day and time, everything just keeps going up in price, it seems. And so it definitely can get impact the wallet and the money aspect of it. As far as health goes, the one that just sticks out to me first come to mind was we've had a problem with litter and illegal dumping of tires. And of course, in the summer months, that can be a huge health hazard because water collects in the tires and mosquitoes becomes a whole issue. Right there, just a huge health issue right there for people being in the area, around where the mosquitoes are and things like that, just as it attracts the mosquitoes. And as far as like safety, one thing that comes to mind is we have a lot of these gracious volunteer groups that I've worked with, and everybody on this panel has probably worked with. And these volunteers, sometimes they'll get out in these streets, roads, or creeks, or whatever, and they're having to kind of put themselves kind of in the danger, cleaning up creeks, getting snake bit, which terrifies me. But if the volunteers clean up a road or something like that, they have the traffic issue. We always tell our people to be super careful. We give them the orange vest, but sometimes people in Nashville aren't going to slow down. I know it's hard to believe, but, but that's when it becomes a safety. And like I said, these volunteers, I have to give to Nashville. And I guess that's why they call us a volunteer state. And volunteers are relentless. They'll get out there on the busiest street in the county and try to clean it up, and which makes me, turns my hair gray a little bit, but it becomes a safety issue for them. And then sometimes this litter, it can, especially if it's a dump site, sometimes it can, if it's sitting at a certain spot on the road, it can be vision, it can impair that, not impair it, but kind of block vision, or it can be, distraction as far as that goes. So that's all the things I can think of.
Those are some really great points, and definitely some points too, just to remember that litter isn't just that, kind of piece of little trash that's on the side of the road. I didn't even think about tires and how that can cause mosquitoes and that kind of stuff. There's just so many ways that this causes an impact. So really, really good points. All right, I'll turn it over to Gray.
Sure, yeah. So I might be able to talk maybe just a smidgen about the health impacts. And I think it's important too. A lot of the times when we think about health, we're thinking about just people, but it's also really important to talk about the health of the ecosystems that this stuff is impacting as well. So for one, the biggest thing is litter travels, especially plastic, and it's very light. It's very easy to be picked up during rain events with stormwater runoff. A lot of that stormwater is going to enter our streams, and our streams are going to enter our rivers as tributaries. And so if you have a plastic bottle that you leave out after a soccer game or something like that, or you forget on the bench at the park, or a plastic bag that, you know, just gets out of it, blows out of your car window when you're rolling your windows down, that can eventually make its way into a stream, and that is going to eventually end up in the Cumberland River. It's eventually going to end up in the Ohio, which connects to the Mississippi, and eventually can get out to the Gulf of Mexico. So that's all super connected. And one of the biggest things that we've been really kind of concerned about, that we don't really know a whole bunch about right now, is how plastic impacts our environment and us as well. So a big concern today is something called microplastics, which are little pieces of plastic that are less than 5 millimeters in size. The problem is plastic bags and bottles and stuff, as they sit out in the environment, they can start breaking down into very small pieces, but they don't biodegrade. They just break into smaller and smaller pieces. Now, plastic is made up of a bunch of different carbon chains and things like that, and they love to just latch on to little things. So they almost act like sponges for bacteria and other chemicals and stuff like that. And so as these microplastics get in our waterways, it can impact fish that live in the water. It can impact us. I mean, we get our drinking water from the Cumberland River, and I think Metro does a great job of filtering our water. But, you know, that can still impact us and kind of work our way to us, and things like beer from beer bottling plants and stuff like that. Or if you have a plastic bottle, microplastics can shed off inside of that as well, and we end up consuming that. And so one thing that was a really interesting thing that came out a couple of years ago is it's estimated we consume about a credit card's worth of plastic, I think every week, something like that, just through microplastics. And that's something that scientists really don't know about how much that impacts human health right now. So they're just trying to figure it out, just to make sure we can just learn more about it and kind of see how that affects us.
That is just, I've heard that before, the credit card statistic, and it's just a little bit terrifying to know that. So definitely something to consider and be more mindful of. Veronica, do you have more to add?
Sure, yeah, Gray and JD had covered a lot of what I was going to say, but just like Gray was saying, with everything eventually ultimately ends up in the streams, you know, and especially during this time of year, it's warming up and people want to recreate in the streams. And, you know, a lot of times we find hazardous materials like broken glass, old rusty metal, and even just like hygiene products, you know, diapers and stuff like that in the streams. And so that kind of ruins not only the ecosystems, the life for the organisms that live there, but just, you know, any kind of recreation that you would like to have there. And then as far as economically, you know, there's all kinds of impacts, but just like with on our side of things, with water treatment, you know, it's going to increase the amount of chemicals that are needed to treat the water. A lot of the cleanup crews, like JD was saying, and the maintenance crews that have to go out and, you know, clean out the MS4 infrastructure. And then a safety issue that I wanted to bring up that we see a lot is litter and debris collecting around storm drains and under road crossings, which ultimately causes flooding. So, you know, that's a huge safety hazard in this area, especially when we have, you know, torrential downpours and people wanting to be out in the streams and stuff like that. So.
Absolutely. If you've never seen a flooded storm drain or culvert area, it's pretty impressive to see how packed those things get with litter and what impacts that can have on, your yard, your streets, and that absolutely is a safety issue. So very good point. All right, so there is so much in the news about litter, especially plastic litter, as Gray, you wonderfully brought up, or maybe not wonderfully, but brought up absolutely. It's harming our oceans, marine wildlife, but what about here in Middle Tennessee? So what effects are you all seeing on our local wildlife that result from litter? So now moving from people to our local wildlife and animals. I'm going to throw that back to you, Veronica.
So one of the first things that came to mind to me, kind of just as like a broad picture, not just here locally, but I know that with habitat destruction, a lot of times wildlife is kind of forced to come into closer proximity with humans. And then, if things are not properly disposed of, they're scavenging off of our, fast food waste and could ingest the plastics or other toxic items that could obstruct their digestive system. And, everybody's seen all the pictures of, like plastics being wrapped around and limbs and causing asphyxiation and all kinds of things. So I know when I worked out in California for a while, and they had a whole program with trying to change animals' behaviors as far as being dependent on like associating humans with food, just because there's so much waste left, overflowing from the dumpsters. It's like, why would I go out and look in the woods for food? I can just come here and get cookies and hamburgers and, so I don't think that that's such a huge issue here yet, but, just with habitat destruction, I think it's going to always be an issue. But I guess as far as Metro Water, in my position, the most common issue that we see as far as affecting wildlife and it's not really what you typically think of as litter, I guess, but I feel like it's definitely related, would be nutrient inputs from lawn chemicals and improperly disposed of yard waste. So, in a lot of our residential areas, we see heavy algal blooms that are going to choke out the streams, lower the DO, change the pH, and just, kind of wipe out any chance of having optimal habitat in that area for anything that would have potentially been living there. And then the other biggest impact, I would say, again, is not something you typically think of as litter, but just development and items that can run off from those sites, and just if it's not properly monitored. So things like habitat alteration and sedimentation, has had a huge impact on things like the Nashville crayfish. And the streamside salamander is one that's currently, losing habitat rapidly. And hellbender, I know sedimentation has a huge impact on those. So I think ultimately, litter and these things can just pretty much destroy areas that would potentially be optimal habitat for aquatic wildlife.
Yeah. And for those of you that aren't familiar, the Nashville crayfish is an endangered species right here, and it's just in Nashville. So a really unique critter that we don't want to lose. So we're going to throw that back over to Gray, if you've got anything else to talk about.
Yeah, so I think Veronica hit a lot of nails on the head with that one, especially with some of those very visual impacts of litter, wildlife consuming litter, being unable to pass that and eventually dying. I think it's a big caveat is a lot of our studies on how litter impacts wildlife, a lot of it's in marine environments. So a lot of our studies on how like plastics, for example, are affecting like fish and things like that and birds are done in ocean environments, because that's where we're seeing it a lot. our rivers are little highways to the ocean, so they're going to carry everything out there. But we don't know as much about it in our freshwater ecosystems. So what we do know is that some animals will consume it because they, a lot of this packaging smells like food, so they're going to consume it. Animals can't differentiate a plastic bag between some kind of, NAMI little morsel of food that they found. So that can have a huge impact on them. But I'm also going to kind of get back on just a little bit on the microplastics talk a little bit, because there's some studies that have been done recently. So a Dr. Martin Knoll at the University of S1E and Dr. I think it's Andreas Pfaff, German scientist who swam the entire length of the Tennessee River and did microplastic sampling. And they also did that same study in the Rhine River, which has a kind of similar discharge to the Tennessee River. And what they found was that the levels of microplastics within the river were 80 times higher than they are in the Rhine. And the Rhine is actually a much bigger watershed than the Tennessee. So it was kind of concerning for him to see, because it just means we have so much plastic waste that is somehow getting into our rivers. And so another concern is that when animals are ingesting this stuff, if plastic's really good at kind of latching on to bacteria and other chemicals, they're also ingesting that as well, which can, there's been like some studies that have shown that that can impact reproductivity. Sometimes there's been some evidence of microplastic particles irritating organ walls within organisms as well. A lot more research needs to be done to kind of understand how that actually impacts organisms and their ability to reproduce and survive. But it does show that it's having an impact, and it is there in a large amount. And so we need to do more to try to curb it at home and from the start before it gets there, and not focus so much on cleanups. Cleanups are a huge important part of all this work, but also make sure that it's just not getting there in the first place, so we don't find out that it's really hurting all of our fish and mussels and stuff like that, and that we can't really do much about it. So that's some of the ways that we've kind of have some hints that it's going to have a small impact, but there's still just a lot more to learn.
Yeah, wow. JD, what about you? Have you seen anything in what you do and how litter might impact wildlife in your role?
I have, and I mean, Gray and Veronica, they covered a lot of it, but I know sometimes people, especially think with roadside litter, well, how can that can have a big effect on the marine life? Because I don't think some people realize when they throw a cigarette butt or a Coke can or whatever it is, when we get a big rain like we're going to get tomorrow, possibly, it's going to wash all that. It's going to go down the drain, and it's going to go there, and it's going to affect the marine life. And I think, like Veronica, you said, some of the food waste, the animals, it's going to be tasty to them. They're going to go be on the side of the road. They're going to be over there eating it and ingesting plastics and things like that. And again, this could also loop back around to a safety issue. If a deer is on the side of the road, eating whatever it is somebody threw out, a pretzel bag or something like that, when that deer is going to jump out in the road and possibly, maybe cause wreck or something like that. So that's one possibility. Another other stuff I've seen is I've actually seen a deer walking around with like I guess it's the plastic that holds like a six-pack together. He's actually had that hanging on his horns. And it's like, he didn't go out looking for that just for decoration, it's completely an accident. And that's just one thing I hate to see. I love the outdoors and animals like that, and I hate to see stuff like that. And one more aspect I noticed, especially more of Davidson County, our rural areas, there's farmers or hobby farmers out there that they harvest hay, and a lot of times it's roadside. Sometimes that litter can float into their field, and there they are harvesting this hay, and they may not notice it when they go to harvest it, and it's in the hay or whatever, and the animal's actually eating it, and it could end up ingesting it on accident, and there it can cause harm to his pets or his farm animals. So that's one thing I've noticed with it, or a few things, I guess.
Wow. A lot of not very good impacts on our wildlife for sure. So we have, all right, next question. Let's move on from, we've talked people, we've talked wildlife. Let's talk a little bit more about the environment. So this is for a little bit more for Gray and for Veronica. So as much of the material that I see littered, and Gray, I think you've mentioned this too, it contains chemicals. Plastic is made from fossil fuels. Even receipt paper is made with harmful BPAs, if you're getting that thermal receipt paper, which is so prevalent these days. And I'm just curious, how does this impact our greater environment? So think about our plants, our trees, our soil, especially as that litter starts to break down. And are some types of litter more harmful than others? I think plastic we're starting to see maybe is more harmful than others, but if either one of you wanted to hop in there, maybe have Gray, if you wanted to, I know you've talked a lot about microplastics. We can start with you. I'm sure you've got some thoughts here.
Yeah, I think first thing first, it kind of just depends on what is being littered. So obviously something like a paper bag that may not even have any ink or printed material is going to be very different from like a can of oil that gets, disposed of improperly or left out or tipped over. So for one thing, it really depends on the type of litter. And I'll kind of go back on that train of microplastics and this is with all litter, there's a lot we know, but there's also a lot that we don't know about what's in, like how this stuff kind of interacts with our environment as well. We just know that it's starting to crop up in a lot of places. So microplastics, for one, are in the air. They've been found in most remote places like the Pyrenees Mountains. So people are breathing this in. It's in our soil as well. So I'm sure 1,000 years from now, if you dug down and did a soil core and looked at the soil layers, there's going to be a very big period of time when they see a bunch of microplastics in the soil in a little layer. So that is yet to be seen, how that might affect our environment as well. But as far as impacts on soil and trees and plants and things like that, I think there's a lot to be kind of seen and discovered by that. Maybe Veronica can touch a little bit more, maybe a little bit more about some specific ways that might be impacting our like local habitat and ecosystems.
Yeah, we'll throw it to you, Veronica. And I know this question is I know you folks are in streams and not trees. We've had tree people on before. So, but any thoughts you have on those impacts to that environment that goes beyond that wildlife and the people?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I really thought of, which kind of goes back to wildlife and people, is with the BPAs. I know there's a lot of research out there that's pretty much found they have, long-term effects on animal populations as far as disrupting hormone systems, and a lot of these compounds are estrogen mimicking. So I know that they found like low sperm reproduction rates in wild, like amphibian populations, especially, and low egg, or actually they found egg production producing proteins in male wildlife populations. So, these BPAs are definitely affecting the wildlife itself. Actually, I did read a study that said that like almost every human living in a developed country could have BPAs detected in their blood or urine at any given point. So that's kind of alarming. So I know that doesn't really answer your question as far as soil, trees, and plants, but I just thought that that was kind of an interesting thing. Like Gray said, I don't think that we really will know the full effects for a while.
Sure. Definitely a lot of research that still needs to be done in these areas. All right, so we've talked about people, animals, a little bit about the environment, but how does so much litter happen? I think that's the big question. So you've got all this going on. I think Nobody Trashes Tennessee, that campaign, it states that there's currently 100 million pieces of litter just on Tennessee's state roadways. That's huge. So I'm just curious from all of you, what's causing all of this litter? How does it actually enter our environment? Gray, I think you mentioned how it kind of moves through our environment a little bit, but how does it enter our environment and how can we prevent contributing to that? All right, I'm going to start with JD.
Awesome. I think one of the main things, especially like on the main highways, a lot of that litter comes from people that it comes out of the back of a trash truck or a pickup truck hauling trash or something like that. That's where a lot of it comes from, and people, it just blows out of the interstate. And I think people have a negative attitude. They're like, well, the city will clean it up, or the state will clean it up, and they are right. But I mean, it's going to cost. Again, we're going back to the wallet. It's going to cost money to do that. So I think that's one place where it comes from. And another thing I think it is, especially, and this may be more for legal dumping, but I think litter is the same way. Is people will throw stuff out they'll throw a Coke bottle or whatever it is out their window or whatever and be like, well, this will be all right. Somebody will clean it up. They kind of have that attitude. And some people just don't know. They think some people might just think that's all right. I mean, they might have just grown up, thinking that was the okay thing to do. It was okay to flick your cigarette butts out the window because they're biodegradable, or somebody heard that somewhere and, it stuck with them. So I think that's one thing people don't know. And then, like I said, part of the people that don't know don't care. So I think one good thing that we'll do with that is like education, teaching these people, letting them know, like, hey, this is how much this is costing, or hey, this is what's having to be done when you do something like that. This is what extra work and time and money, this is what it's causing. So
Absolutely. I'll throw it back to you, Veronica.
Yeah, so like JD said, I think a lot of it, is accidental, or at least I want to believe that, I guess, just not properly securing items, or, one of the biggest things we see is dumpsters being overfilled at commercial sites, or even just not properly plugged and maintained. And a lot of times when you end up talking to people, it's like, it wasn't intentional, just nobody had really delegated who was responsible. And kind of once they get that into place, that situation can improve. But then, like JD was saying, I do think that there are a lot of people that just are careless, don't care. I think that a lot of times when you go out and talk to people, it surprises me how many people there are that just like don't go outside. They don't really connect to nature or anything. So I could see how maybe it doesn't seem to affect them personally, so they don't really make the connection of like, oh, this is actually a problem. It's like once it's out of their sight, they don't think about it anymore. So as far as how do we help it, I think education is the biggest thing. But then at the same time, I feel like, it's been a part of even public education for a really long time, reduce, reuse, recycle. It's still kind of like, so I think enforcement would be another side of the coin, like, stricter policies and actually following through on the repercussions.
Yeah. Gray?
Yeah, I think they touched on some great points, and I think they're right where there's a good portion that's unintentional and a good portion that is intentional. I've seen it come from a million different places. So for one, on the unintentional side, if you ever go to a park and you're like, oh, this trash can is full, but maybe if I just like keep stacking my stuff up, maybe somebody will get it. Well, eventually the wind's going to take that away, or the rain's and it's going to end up washing into a stream, or it's going to wash into a place where it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And of course you won't see it until it becomes winter time. After playing soccer for so many years, I also saw, tons of people leaving there just accidentally. They just forget that they had a Gatorade bottle, or they were taking their dog for a walk and they left their pet waste bag to come get later. And then they of course forgot it. So there's a lot of unintentional stuff, especially like JD said as well, with trucks having stuff blown out the back because people just kind of forgot to clean out their truck bed. You roll down your car window where you're going down the interstate and a plastic bag gets sucked out. I've seen too where we're supposed to have a tarp law in Tennessee. So I've seen people carrying a lot of loose material that they think won't kind of get blown out. But unfortunately, because they haven't tarped it down, it does eventually end up, having a bottle here or there kind of get blown out. Culturally too, there's sometimes where people think it's okay. So again, cigarette butts, y'all, they're not biodegradable. They're made of cellulose acetate. They're made of plastic. They actually have a lot of chemicals into them that have been shown to really kill off a lot of fish species if it's in high concentrations. I've also heard that people put tires in streams for fish habitat. I've had several people tell me that, and I hate to inform them that it's not good habitat, and it's also really horrible for the water quality. So there's some weird cultural stuff there too that is just kind of accepted, but it's something that people need to learn is not an okay thing to do. On the kind of illegal dumping side of littering too, I think in a lot of areas that don't have a lot of infrastructure, at least in the past, people would put a lot of trash in sinkholes and stuff like that. That would kind of be like nature's dumping site. And unfortunately, it's an even worse dumping site than anywhere else just because it's a conduit for water. So of course, it's just can contaminate all kinds of stuff. But then on the more malicious, intentional side of stuff, from experience during cleanups, and I've actually had someone do this to me while I was cleaning up, I often see like bags of people just cleaning out their cars and they just toss it out to the side of the road. I've had someone do that while I was cleaning up the road, so I could get that for them, I guess. So I see tons of, especially in my neighborhood, for whatever reason, people just toss their trash out of their car because they're trying to clean out their car, and they just, they may see this may be something that someone else can talk about where if there's already a lot of litter in one place, it's kind of perceived as like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like this is already so bad. So, whatever. So that's another thing that I've seen a lot of. So I think it's a big kind of juxtaposition between the two. JD, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to add one thing that you said, and I was talking about, well, once people see like a legal dump site, well, then you're exactly right. I can't amen you enough on that one. People think, they say, well, there's already a couch stuff in there. Let me take my old couch and my old debris there. And I mean, I have proof of this on camera. We've installed cameras over the city in the past to try to catch people illegally dumping, and we've caught them. And I mean, I've literally seen a guy with a 16-foot trailer and was just heaving everything on there off in this one little dead end spot. I mean, unfortunately, we couldn't catch him because I wasn't able to get a license plate number and the camera. That's a whole other thing. But I mean, yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what you were saying, because it's I think that kind of goes back to the education. Well, the second guy may not know. He may think, well, maybe this is where we're supposed to set it so the city can come and get it, not knowing, what that's actually costing them.
Yeah. Wow. So we've got about 10 minutes before we hit our 1 o'clock mark. So I'm going to wrap it up with this last question, and then we will stick around for a few extra minutes to answer our audience questions. But I want to get to this last one because it kind of hits on the action items for our folks. So each of you, clearly, you contribute a great deal to dealing with litter and its negative impacts on our community. So can you talk about some of the programs or initiatives you all are working on? I know you've mentioned a little bit of them, but basically, how can our audience, what are the things that they can get involved in? What are the things that they can do to reduce litter more actively? So I'll throw, JD, you're up, so I'm going to throw it to you.
Well, like I said, and I talked this about when we first started this, but I'll start with they can organize a neighborhood cleanup. And with that neighborhood cleanup, you can call us, say, hey, I want to clean up my subdivision or clean up this stretch of highway where my church is or something like that. And say, I want to have, I got, this youth group's going to hit me about maybe 10 people. Right now with COVID, we really don't want to tell people to get out, mass gatherings to go clean up litter just yet. But if it's like a small church group or something like that, I think that's perfect. Or just you and your people live in the house with you, or you and a couple of your neighbors, I think that's fine. But just let us know. We'll give you all the supplies you need to do the clean. We'll give you bags, gloves, litter grabbers, safety vest. We'll give you waivers for you and all your volunteers to sign. We'll also, this just happened to think about this. We actually, on our website, there is a link where I did a YouTube video of how to do a neighborhood cleanup and how to do a neighborhood cleanup during a pandemic, like with COVID. Just shows how you can do things safely, and you can still help the city out and help keep Nashville beautiful and be safe about it. Like I said, we give you the supplies, and the Adopt a Street program. If somebody's interested in doing that, there's not a whole lot to it. We ask you organize at least 4 cleanups a year of the street you adopted. It's got to be at least 4 blocks long, or maybe like a mile, and depending on, we kind of use our discretion on as far as like where the street's located. But we like at least like a 4-block minimum, good stretch of road that you can take care of and take pride in. And again, you get all the supplies to do the cleanup, and we'll put signs in the road, saying that you've probably seen them in place in the city. It'll be a nice sign that has like your group or whatever. And like I said, and I think what many people think about Adopt a Street program, or what I kind of misunderstood, they think they have to be like a big like maybe like a fraternity or sorority, or like a big group or a big business. I have many groups now that's just like a family, and they'll just come up with a cool nickname for their family, or be like a couple sets of neighbors, and they just got a cool name or some type of message they want to get across and take pride in their neighborhood. And it's good because I think it helps get the younger kids, kind of gets them involved and makes them want to do it, participate. So, but those are the 2 programs that I'd really like to, encourage everybody to look into.
Awesome. And we'll share links to those as well for everybody. Gray, I'm going to throw it to you.
Sure. So yeah, we do a ton of different cleanups and stuff throughout the year. We have our Adopt a Stream program, which is very similar to the Adopt a Street program, where a group can sign on for a couple of years, and they do a couple cleanups over that. And it's actually a program through Metro Water and in partnership with Public Works. So thank y'all so much for all of that. But we help get supplies to the groups. We help get trash pickup coordinated. We can give some tips on how to host your own cleanup, safety tips and things like that. And we just have any kind of size of group. I've had very small scout troops adopt a little local section of stream and clean it up. I've also had large companies or religious organizations, things like that, adopt a stream as well and clean it up. We also host kind of one-off cleanups throughout the year as well. So maybe a group or a company or something like that is looking for a service opportunity, or high school. We always try to work with folks to see if we can get them on a litter cleanup in a place in need that we know about. But I also like to say, it also starts at home. I started going out every day on walks, and I just bring a trash bag. I just fill 1 trash bag up a day, and I just leave the rest, and I say, I'll come get it tomorrow. And, just make little kind of small steps each day. It also starts on the prevention end. So, if you've got kids who are a little forgetful with their plastic bottles and stuff, sometimes, kind of help them realize that they need to pick that up. If you've got a truck, make sure you're cleaning it out before you hop on the highway or something like that. If you've got trash in your trash can, I see this a lot, where my roommates, my previous residents, would just fill it up with loose trash and stuff. Whenever the trash truck would come by, because it wasn't bagged, it would just kind of spill everywhere and get blown all around. So, definitely make sure you're bagging it up properly, just because, all that really light trash can really easily get everywhere. So it starts from those small kind of initiatives at home. And then, of course, the biggest thing of all, which is the hardest thing of all, I definitely struggle with this, is try to reduce your use of these single-use things. You won't have to worry about them as much if you aren't using them. So don't get bottled water if you can help it. We always carry an Nalgene or something like that. Try to use reusable bags. I've got some you can have if you want them. You can just contact me, because every conference I go to, I get one. So happy to give you some too if you want it. And then there's a lot of other ways online you can figure out how to kind of reduce your use of single-use plastics and other types of materials as well.
I cannot reiterate that one enough as a waste reduction professional. All the reusables, we have lots of those as well, reusable bags. So Veronica, I know you all work really closely on the Adopt a Stream program, but is there anything else that you have to add on programs or things that folks can do?
I just wanted to say, kind of from the water quality perspective, you know, we, as part of our stream walks, we assess stream segments for litter and kind of decide whether they would be a good candidate for stream cleanups. And then we send that on to Gray. So that's a great help to us. But we do have if you were to witness any type of, you know, pollution into a water body, you can call us at 615-880-2420, or any type of maintenance issue like litter collected around a storm drain. I think the number for that one is 862-4600. So those are always just kind of good to know, because we get a lot of people that we just encounter out like, hey, I needed to get a hold of you guys to tell you about, you know, and they don't know how to do that. So I think JD and Gray pretty much touched on everything that I had come up with, but just, I mean, as far as helping to reduce, I think it's just an individual, you know, just taking responsibility for yourself. And like Gray said, or maybe it was JD, I'm not sure, but kids especially, I think that they're more open to you know, caring about get them while they're young, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So education definitely, I think, is a huge way to reach people. So
Absolutely. Getting the, oh, go ahead, JD.
I forgot that, I meant to add this when I spoke, but the Hub Nashville, hubnashville.com, they can report any litter illegal dumping. And if it's in the creek or the road or whatever, it'll go to the correct department, whether it be public works or water. So that's another great resource people can use to report litter. Or if it's even on private property, you can go to the codes department. So just want to let everybody know they can use that resource as well.
That's a great one. I know I have used it. I have watched somebody throw a cigarette out their car window, and I took a picture of their license plate and reported it through Hub Nashville. So definitely a great resource. All right, so we've got about 2 minutes. It just turned to 12:58. So what we're going to do really quick before we get into all of your questions. So we are going to spend the next 15 minutes on our folks' questions. But before we do that, since we are at the hour and some of you may have to jump off, I just want to share really quickly what's coming up next. As a reminder, I think y'all touched on exactly what people should be doing and the actions that you could take. So we are going to share that in those follow-up emails. But also, just as a reminder, Q2 starts next April. We've got an extra week in there off. So our next session is not until April 12th, but we'll be sending that information to you. A changing climate in Middle Tennessee. I'm really excited. We're going to have Patrick's going to talk with us a little bit about climate. And we've also got somebody to talk to us specifically about flooding in Middle Tennessee and the changes that they've seen because of climate here in Nashville. So it's going to be a great session to start off our second quarter. But with that, if you have to go, thanks for being with us. If not, please stick around. We've probably got some excellent questions. I would bet I have seen some flowing through the chat. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Patrick.
Excellent. Thank you so much for everyone who was able to join us today. Totally understand if you have to get off to work. We do have a bunch of questions that have come in. So without further ado, I'm just going to go get right into it. This first one comes from Anne. Downtown trash receptacles still indicate that recyclables are being collected separately from trash. Is that true?
JD, do you know that answer?
I do not. No, I do not.
It was my understanding that we only had trash cans for litter downtown, but I'm not 100% sure about the public cans that we have, but we can look into that. And Patrick, if you can make a note of who that was, I'll reach out and maybe we can try and follow up in the follow-up question. But okay. I don't believe that we separate recyclables in our public cans right now.
Okay.
I don't think we do, but I don't want to give a definite answer on that.
And I do have that person's name, so we can follow up with them separately. They also had a second question, which was, is there a separate plan or protocol to discard face mask?
We don't have anything separate. And I kind of go over, like I mentioned earlier, I did like a little YouTube presentation on how to do a cleanup, during like the pandemic and everything. And it's just, what I've told people is just put it in your bag trash that, you've collected. Just try to always wear gloves. And after you get done handling all that, sanitize or clean up, try to wash or sanitize if all possible. So, and just do so carefully. Because I know another issue we've had too is people litter, their gloves or litter their face mask, and that can be, it can be a hazardous material almost. So we tell people, if they don't really feel comfortable picking it up, we understand. But if they do pick it up, be as safe as they can about it. Wear gloves, sanitize, and dispose of it, the safest way you can.
All right. Moving on to our next question. This one comes from Michael. When we clean up trails, we notice several sewage permitted discharge in Nashville. Are these going to be terminated? I'm also checking the chat just to make sure those aren't two questions that I combined on accident.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So yeah, Nashville has a lot of old infrastructure. We're working, that's a major part of our program, is to kind of eliminate these spots. But I can't give you definite answer on when or if specific ones will be terminated, in the immediate future. But it's definitely one of our main goals, is to kind of, get all that out and updated. So
I'll just throw out there that there is I'm gonna share it in the chat with everybody, the Clean Water Nashville program that's part of Metro Water, that talks a lot more about those discharge areas and all of that infrastructure, and provide some information about projects that they're working on.
Thank you. Perfect.
All right. This next question is for you, JD. Could you tell us where tires go in Metro at no expense?
Sorry about that. You can take them to the convenience centers. And I think I actually was looking at the comments. I think somebody kind of listed the locations of convenience centers. You can take them there. I think you can only take so many at one. I can't remember. You can't take 100 there at a time, but you can take a few at a time. So that'd be that's where you can take them at no cost. There is a tire recycling facility off Cement Plant Road, but you will be charged there for that. So.
All right. Next question. Is it time for a new campaign? And Jen, this one might be for you. But is it time for a new campaign / intro to talking points? Something along the lines of, let's say, Tidy Up Tennessee as part of a community education campaign.
Well, and I think JD, you can probably speak to this too, but we really work closely with the Nobody Trashes Tennessee campaign that they are continuing to do a lot of stuff with. But I know, JD, you're a little bit more involved with that than I am, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, and TDOT just did that. I mean, it's been a couple of years ago, but they are still doing that campaign strong. And I love the campaign because through that campaign, they've given a lot of cities throughout the state, they've given them grant money to provide education materials. I know people probably noticed on the side of some of our trash trucks, we have a Nobody Trash Tennessee with the Tennessee TriStar on it. Before COVID at festivals, we handed out hats and stickers and things like that to really promote the campaign. And I know people probably wear the whole, my hat right now has got a TriStar on it, and that's just a huge selling point right now. Kids, people my age like to have that kind of logo on stuff. And it's just a good way to promote it. And like I said, I think they're still on. I'm not quite sure, but they're going to still have that campaign for a few more years. And like I said, I think it really worked great in getting the message out throughout the whole state.
All right. And next question, I was just checking in the chat from Bob Fletcher. Trashercise is a new Keep Tennessee Beautiful initiative announced in the last 2 weeks. Okay, thanks, Bob. So next question, I'm a former board member of the Richland Creek Watershed Alliance, so I understand a little bit of the problems we face. When I moved back to Sylvan Park almost 20 years ago, I noticed that a small lake formed in the alley behind my block. I was told that frequently at the end of a job, cement mixers would dump excess cement into storm drains, thus completely plugging the drain. Are you still having this problem and having to jackhammer cement out?
I have never encountered this problem, and hopefully that was just an issue that happened a long time ago, because that would definitely be considered a violation. I know most equipment like that has like a washout area where they're supposed to go and dump out any material and even wash their vehicle off so that it's all collected kind of like in a sediment pit so it can settle out and not wash into the storm drain. So to answer your question, no, we're not still having that problem, thankfully. But if you do see that, please report it to us.
Yes, if you see that, maybe even report it to Hub Nashville, but also call the police if you see cement trucks just directly putting cement into drains. That's okay. Moving on. A lot of the litter I see and pick up is from fast food. Can the fast food places be held accountable and help defray the cost of cleaning up trash from McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, etc.?
I don't know if they can be held accountable. I know a couple of years ago, Keep America, and they're still doing it, but Keep America Beautiful was doing a thing with an app called Literati, and it was an app on your phone. This was on the West Coast where they were doing the testing of it and everything, but they would have an app on your phone, and say you was up picking up trash, take a picture of whatever it might be, whether it be, McDonald's cup, Starbucks cup, anything like that. It takes a picture of it, it geocodes the address, and it also it just takes a picture of what it is. Like say it's a Taco Bell cup, or I think the instance that Keep America Beautiful gave us was it was like a Taco Bell, like a hot sauce packet, and they keep on finding numerous of these, and people kept turning them in. Well, somehow Literati was able to report, or able to let Taco Bell know about these numbers, about how they're getting so many of these packets in. And then Taco Bell was able to kind of be proactive, and instead of giving you like 28 hot sauce packets when you buy one taco, just kind of give you just one hot sauce packet, or kind of ask, do you want a hot sauce packet, and kind of stopping it right there. That's just one thing I know that I've heard of what's going on. I don't know if it's really going on here. The Literati app, it still is a thing. People can use it if they want to download it and use it. It's kind of a cool way to track and see what's being littered.
All right, thank you, JD. So next question is, do you have an elementary or after-school club curriculum for Metro Nashville Public Schools and all student populations, including homeschoolers, charter, and faith communities?
We have an education program that we used to do this. You might be able to reach out to us, but another good organization that does a lot of waste reduction information is Turnip Green Creative Reuse. And I know for one, they do tons of really awesome in-school, after-school programs to teach kids about, reducing, recycling, and reusing materials. So I would definitely encourage y'all to reach out to them for something like that.
Excellent response, Gray. Cannot say enough wonderful things about the folks at Turnip Green Creative Reuse, for sure. So this next question is, where can I find info on personal health impact, the cost of litter, and awareness of others in Nashville who are involved? And then as a follow-up, are there any local news channels carrying positive news? I think that's a little subjective, with facts to avoid framing as a negative. So again, that first question was, where can I find a website with info on personal health impact, cost of litter, and awareness of others in Nashville who are involved?
I've definitely seen a lot, like National Geographic will definitely do a lot. They have tons of stories that come out on microplastics and stuff like that, on not only the impacts of human health, but also on animal health as well. There's some articles that like Scientific American does as well, even the New York Times on that kind of stuff. I'm sure there exists some kind of big resource hub to go to as well, where you can find all that kind of information. I'm not sure about any positive news stuff. If you find that, let me know about it too, because I need some good injection of feel-good news.
Great, absolutely. I think we can all use some feel-good news. So this next one we have here,
can I just throw, I'm jumping in. I'm just going to
Yeah.
throw out there too, for those that want to get involved or about people in your area that are interested in this, I would reach out to your Metro Beautification Commissioner, because that is what they do. They are volunteers that go out and they organize cleanups. They work with JD. They do all kinds of work to really try and keep Nashville beautiful. And they're specifically doing this kind of stuff. And they are really hard workers. So get in touch with your Metro Beautification Commissioner.
All right, thank you for hopping in there, Jen. So this next one is, what's the best course of action when we see a filled or overfilled trash bin in a metro park?
I would say go to the hub, or that'd be probably the best way. If you don't have like a phone number for like metro parks, just put it in the hub. In the hub, when they put it in the hub, it'll have like a way you can get the location and all that. I think that's the best and easiest way to do it. If you don't see a parks official walking around or something like that, I think that's the best and easiest way.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say on top of that, don't do that tempting thing. I know it's so much fun to try to stack as much trash as you can on top of those, but
don't play Jenga with it.
You're playing with fire. It's, it can be a little annoying at times, but people have known me for carrying trash for miles just because I don't want to put it somewhere it shouldn't be. So take it home if you can, at least get it to your car so you can drive it home if you can. Or often, I've also noticed a lot in parks where one trash can will be a little more visible than another one. So that one will be really full. And then you could easily go to the next one and see that and find that it has capacity too. So I always encourage y'all to keep an eye out for those.
Absolutely. Excellent advice there, Gray. So this next question, and we have 3 more after this, is I live near Lipscomb and I see high school students leaving trash in their parking lot. They are probably cleaning out their cars. Do y'all do educational programs with local schools? I think that was answered with the question about turnip green. And how can I report this?
I would, if you know the location, I would report it to, I'd call, like for Lipscomb, I'd call, somebody, maybe their admin building. With it being private property, it's going to be on them. Of course, if they're just stacking up trash out there, then it becomes a codes issue. But I would reach out to the school and make sure they're a little more proactive about it, or letting the students know about it, and maybe they can put a trash can out there or something like that. That'd be on the school there.
And we've definitely done, and actually I think Lipscomb, someone maybe from the lower school reached out for some programming and education, but we do all kinds of education. So sometimes if you just want to, contact us at the Cumberland River Compact, we might be able to do like a class or send a video for resources for teachers to share with students as well, just to teach them about watersheds and how pollutants and stuff like that travels as well. So if you want to do that, probably the easiest way off the top of my head would be to email us at info at cumberlandrivercompact.org. No spaces, no dashes, cumberlandrivercompact.org. And maybe we can get something set up over there at Lipscomb.
Excellent. And again, I will be sending all these resources that we're mentioning in a follow-up email to everyone. So our next question comes from Michael. I believe microplastics assay is not listed as routine in Nashville water service reports, but I think I recall reading that they have a spot tested and are not detected. I may have this wrong, please correct me. Does the current filtration process eliminate them effectively?
So I don't really know much about this, just not working in the laboratory or in the water treatment facility. So I don't want to say anything that's incorrect, but I'm pretty sure you are correct on the fact that we do not routinely analyze for microplastics at this time, just because most of the things that they're routinely analyzing for are regulated. So until these become, part of the federal or state regulation, it would probably not be put into place on a regular basis. So I know there are several compounds that they are looking into analyzing, like, algae, looking more at algae and diatoms, and antibiotics in the water. And I'm sure microplastics is one of them, but I don't know specifically the answer to your question on whether they have or have not been detected, or if our filtration system is efficient in filtering them out. Maybe Gray might know a little bit more.
I've read in a previous report, I haven't seen the past couple of water quality consumer reports, but one of them they did do a kind of section on microplastics. I think Metro does a great job. I mean, obviously they have to get up to EPA standards, and they do a fantastic job at filtering water. I think it would be kind of folly to just say that for definite fact, they just get them all out. There's always more to learn about that. So maybe check out the consumer report, see if they did a recent one on that, if they did another highlight. If not, hopefully one day the EPA will kind of implement that as a water quality standard that everybody can get on the same page about too. I think that's a big thing that needs to come from the federal government as well.
All right, thank you for that. And the last two I'm going to combine into one. The first is, can Metro add more recycling containers beside trash cans? And then the follow-up to that is it possible to place more trash cans in the community to help prevent litter? And Jen, I think maybe these might be more appropriate for you to answer.
Well, for the recycling cans, it's absolutely something that has been discussed and looked into. I think it goes back to, unfortunately, just that financial piece and the logistical piece of being able to manage a system of having recyclables downtown. I know one of the issues that a lot of cities and folks have faced in terms of public recycling cans is that they just end up incredibly contaminated. Mm-hmm. So it just ends up as trash. I know downtown when we did the glass pilot project with the honky tonks, the honky tonk glass recycling, that was a big issue, is that there ended up being a lot of contamination issues as well. And that just, it costs more money and it doesn't necessarily effectively work. But it's not, I don't know that there's any current plans, but it's definitely part of our zero waste master plan to expand those types of programs across the city. But Gray's got his hand raised, so I want Gray to jump in there. He might know something else as well.
Sorry, I just lost everybody for a second. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you repeat that last little bit just to make sure? I think my internet just slipped.
Oh, yeah. I was just mentioning that we were talking about the downtown recycling receptacles and the financial constraints that go along with a program like that, and also the contamination issues that you have with the recycling cans downtown, that they end up just being more contaminated because of that public education piece as well. But that it is something that is looked at in our zero waste master plan for the future, as we just need to increase recycling all across the county and access to recycling across the county.
Yeah, I mean, I can just kind of ditto you on that. I think it's a really big conundrum because we do want to have more recycling infrastructure for folks. But that's only as good as the folks who are utilizing that. And I do notice a lot of the time that there's just a lot of contamination just because either people, they just aren't paying attention and they put stuff in it that aren't supposed to be in there, or they are just kind of confused about what to put into it. So I think that if they did implement something like that, that it would be a definitely kind of a dovetail campaign to get the infrastructure there, but also just do a lot of education to get folks to understand what they can and can't recycle. And if I'm not mistaken, and I actually kind of look at this almost all the time religiously about what is accepted through Metro or recycling. That's all available online. Please, especially for your home carts too, or for this can apply to stuff in downtown recycling bins. Look at what's recycled and what's taken, because that, even if you think you're doing a good thing, it's really important that we're not contaminating the recycling stream, because that can actually impact what gets recycled too as well. So that's all available online. And I encourage everybody to take a gander at that.
And I am just going to add, I have to plug our new Nashville Waste and Recycling app that came out last Monday. So that app, you can download it on your mobile devices, and that includes information for illegal dumping as well. So it dovetails into all of this, but that app you can download or you can check it out on our website, and it is so much more robust and clear information on what you can and cannot recycle. And we are continuing to add information to that. There's a Waste Wizard search. You can search materials and find out whether or not it can be recycled or where you should dispose of it. So it's got everything from plastic bottles and that thermal receipt paper to electronics, mattresses, and all those other things. So I'm going to thank you very much, Gray, for sharing that and encouraging people to go there, because there's a lot of good information.
You at least know that I use it all the time, all the time.
And for the record, I also have it downloaded. Not sure if you can see that, but there it is. Yes, it's a really amazing app, and we will be sure to include that and all other links in our follow-up email. And that's all I have today as for questions. So to our panelists, thank you so much for being here and educating the public on this all-important issue. Thank you for giving your time. We really do appreciate it, and I'm sure our viewers appreciate it as well.
Awesome. That's it.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. All right. We'll see everybody back here. April 12th is our next episode. So please don't forget to sign up and join us. And we'll see you in that follow-up email. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Oh, wait. For the record, it is April 14th.
Oh, I am so sorry. I have ruined the date. I messed it up. I am so sorry. April 14th. April 14th. Okay. We'll see you all then.
All right. Take care, everybody.